So let's have a look at whipped wheels. If you haven't seen the video on woven ones, you might want to go and have a look at that now, because this is very similar, but there are a couple of important differences. So I'm going to show you here in this centre of this flower here. I'm going to use the Lana threads, and we sell these in the shop. They're lovely, 50% wool and 50% acrylic, and very beautiful qualities of wool, but really strong and very nice to stitch with. So I'm going to use these to show you, and we're going to make our spokes underneath as we did for the woven wheels. So we're going to whip a thread around the spokes and make a circle, filled in decorative circle if you like. Now with the woven wheel we needed to do an odd number of spokes. The whipped wheel, it doesn't matter, we're going to whip the thread around each of the spokes, so you can have an odd number or an even number, doesn't matter which. So let's do an even number. I'm just bringing the needle up just on the outside of the circle, and that will ensure that we cover the circle as we go. And then just give a bit of a guess where the middle is. Happy that it's there, so out from the outside down into the middle. And you can do the opposite side, down into the middle. And then because we can use an even number now, I'm going to split that side into thirds. Just going to do that by eye, you don't need to measure it. So one there, outside in, and split the remaining side into thirds also. Down into the middle, and then the same with the other side. It should line up with the other side now, so you should find this side a bit easier. And then the outside of the circle should line up with that one, and it does. And that will give us 6 spokes. If you want to do 8 spokes or 10, if you've got a larger circle, that's fine. Just make sure they're as evenly spaced as you can get them. You can do odd numbers as well with this one, it doesn't matter, odd or even for whipped. So I'm going to start in the centre. I'm going to use the same thread that I've done my spokes in. I'm coming up as close to the centre as I can with a needle without going through the thread. And this time I'm going to go round each spoke. So I'm going to go underneath the spoke with the thread, and then I'm wrapping it around there, so I'm going back again and under the same one, and then under the next one, ready for the next stitch. And that, you can see that loop wrapping itself around that spoke like so. So I've gone underneath, over the spoke, back over the spoke, and back underneath it, and that wraps that thread around the spoke. And you'll see the pattern form as I start to go. So underneath the next one, thread back on yourself, back underneath it, to go around that thread. Now you'll just need to fiddle with it to get those to lie near the centre. So a little bit of tension just to tighten them up. The further round you go, they'll push the stitches in, so don't worry too much about that. So underneath there, close to the middle, back on yourself, and then back underneath it to wrap that thread, whip that thread around the spoke. So underneath, you can see I'm just tensioning it towards the middle, which is helping a little bit. Back towards myself, back underneath, and in preparation for the next one you can slide under the next spoke if you want to. You've already gone underneath it, back on yourself, put the thread around under the next one, back on yourself, underneath. You'll soon pick up a rhythm. Try not to catch any of the spokes with the needle or any of the thread underneath. If you want to turn it over, then use the eye of the needle to slide underneath, and you'll find that the point doesn't catch in the threads of the fabric. You're kind of doing a forward stitch and a backward stitch, if you like. So back on yourself, forward, back on yourself, forward, just work your way around the circle. I'm using a double thread, so just make sure that tension stays nice and tight, and you can just push the wraps up to the centre of the circle. So back under that one and the next one. If you want to change colour, go back on yourself instead of back underneath. Take your needle down at that point there, and that will finish off the one wrap. So you can bring your next colour in, purple, so you can see what I'm doing. All of this circle will get covered, so you can just start and finish your threads inside that shape. You won't see those threads. And I'm going to come back. I've gone around that one, so I want to go around the next one, so I'm going to come ahead now. Ready to go underneath that one, that spoke there, and then come back on yourself and wrap that one. Just think about continuing. The thread needs to continue from where it left off. So we'd wrapped that one already, so now I'm wrapping this one, and you'll see that change of colour start to have an effect. I'm just moving the needle like that just to make sure I haven't caught it on anything. Just feel it when it catches. You can start to see the shape that it does now. It looks a little bit like a spider's web. Pulling on this probably fairly tightly to get these wraps around here. They don't bunch up like the woven one does, because you're securing every thread around the spoke, so you can put a bit more tension on it. You can start to see that pattern come now. Back on yourself underneath the next one. Continue all the way around until you get to the edge, and then I'll show you how to finish off. Okay, I'm getting close to the edge now. Now it gets a little bit harder to get the needle underneath because these coils are quite tight, so just push it up from underneath with your finger if you can. Just wiggle the needle, push the stitches out of the way if you need to see the spoke. Keep putting those rows in, just keep going round and round. You can get quite a few in, more than you think. Still going. Now you might end up, as I have, a little bit more space on one side than the other. That's probably just a tension. So show you a little cheat that you can do. That should happen. It's always good to know the cheats. I'm going to go around to the top. One more in there. Now, I've covered my spokes, but I've still got some of the round circle showing from the original design. So you can do one of two things here. you can either put an edging around it or something in a different stitch, or if you want to carry on but can't go underneath the spokes anymore, you can just put some straight stitches in. Like I say, a little bit of a cheat, but it looks the same, no one will know. So really I'm putting these long stitches in here without going around the bars because I've filled all my bars. So I'm just coming up and down in that space, and you can see it filling it in, not going around the bar, coming up next to it and down next to the next one, and it just fills in that little bit of a space. So if for any reason your circle's maybe not quite round and you've got more showing on one side than the other, this is a nice way of just finishing it off and tidying it up, and it looks exactly the same. So I've just gone around there, and if you think you need two, you can come back to this side and put another one in. Just fill in that space. Need another one over here. I think we're there. You can see that effect of the wrapping around each of the spokes of the wheel. So that gives you a whipped wheel.